Hi, I'm Kylie and welcome to this week's episode of Money, 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 where we cut out the jargon and talk about all things financial. Welcome to this episode of Money, Money, Money. When you buy a house, you really need to consider using a great settlement agent. So to explain to us why, I've got a great friend of the local loan company here with us today, Joe Harmon from Avenue Conveyancing, and Joe's going to help us through the process. So Joe, why would you use a settlement agent rather than do it yourself? Because we've had loads of clients come in and go, our friend said it was easy, but it's never as easy as it seems.
No, I think it's really important to remember, Kylie, that a property transaction is probably the biggest asset that the average person would deal with in their lives. Now, why you would risk that for a few $100s is beyond me. Now, there's quite a few things that can go wrong. First of all, a simple delay, just a few days, could actually accrue penalty interest for late settlement. Now, this starts at generally 9%, can go up to 12%, depending on your contract. On an average $500,000 house, this is $125 a day. So as you can see, that could get up there pretty quickly. And that's not taking into account things that could go wrong with your property, debts unpaid on the property, problems with the property, issues with property. And it's all very well to say, hey, I made it to settlement on my own, aren't I great? But you know what? Those people aren't going to find out what they missed till they go to sell it. And their buyer has a great settlement agent who goes, hey, this, and this, you need to pay for that now. And the other thing that's important to remember is a law of statutes does go for 6 years. So if you're a seller doing your own settlement, that's a long time to be looking over your shoulder thinking someone might turn up at your doorstep with a nice little writ for you. So I don't know why settlements are not expensive. I don't know why you would have a go at this stuff. You don't service your own car unless you're a mechanic, really in the order of things. And
that's a great point, Joe. I don't think a lot of people realise about the statutes going for 6 years. It's something that I know because we've learned a lot from you over the years, but certainly until I had come across it, I wasn't aware that, 6 years somebody can actually come after you in effect. Definitely. So a settlement agent can help reduce that risk to yourself. So what exactly does a settlement agent do? Okay.
Basically, what a settlement agent should do is they prepare all the relevant documentation that is required to do a property transaction. We also can do all the searches for debts, things affecting the property, so you know what needs to be cleared. Make sure you get good title for your property and you get your money if you're the seller. That's the basic thing a settlement agent's supposed to do. But I think probably the more important job we do is we are the party planners. And we basically liaise with your bank, your broker, the real estate agent, your pest inspectors, your building inspectors, your builder if applicable, the other party, anybody that needs to be involved in this process. We make sure they've got everything they need. We make sure they're on track. Basically, we make sure everybody is doing what they've got to do to get you to have a good party and get you there on time.
That's a great analogy, party planners. I've never thought of that before, but that in effect is what you're doing, getting all of the parties.
I'm surprised, Carly, knowing me, that you would think I'd be anything else.
I'm a little disappointed in myself. So what is the difference between a settlement agent, a conveyancer, and a lawyer? Because we hear those terms thrown around everywhere, and from state to state it's different. Over east it's more commonly a conveyancer or a lawyer. In Western Australia it's more likely to be a settlement agent. So what are the differences between them?
I think that's a really good point, because a lot of people ring me up and go, do I need a conveyancer and a settlement agent? Basically, a conveyancer and a settlement agent are exactly the same thing. As you said, a conveyancer is more an Eastern States term, whereas settlement agent is more a Western Australian term. In saying that, as we're starting to deal more with the Eastern States, etc., obviously conveyancer is becoming more and more widely spread over in the West Coast here. Now, we are qualified to be a licensed settlement agent. We do need to do a lot of study, theory and practical. We also are heavily audited. We are licensed. To keep our licenses, we have to comply with all the audits, the compliancy visits, etc., which are very, very heavy. We also have to be of good character. So, it's not just anybody can come and be a settlement agent. So, a lawyer obviously has a law degree. A lawyer or solicitors, we're more solicitors in Australia. Lawyers can do settlements. A lot of them choose not to. Settlements can be very, very laborious, very time consuming. So a lot of lawyers choose not to actually do settlements. In fact, myself, I have a lot of law firms that do actually recommend settlements to us.
Yep.
And most of us, the settlement agents, do have a lawyer on that we can refer us our questions and our clients to.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people realise how much study and how much regulation settlement agents are actually under.
Oh, absolutely, yes. We're very, very heavily controlled.
Which is great.
Yes.
Now, important thing, Jo, how do you calculate stamp duty?
Okay, stamp duty has a lot of rates. And there's all different rates and all types of concessions and whatnot. I think the important thing to remember about stamp duty, it is a tax. And as with all taxes, the higher you go, the higher the percentage. The stamp duty are probably the major things you need to think about here is first homeowners. Now, first homeowners are exempt for stamp duty on a residential house up to 400.
This is in WA?
In WA.
But varies from state to
yes,
state.
Good point, Carly. Stamp duty is state legislated. So in every state, land itself is state legislated. So in every state, the process, the rates, the stamp duty, etc. is different. Over here, first homeowners, if they're buying an existing residence, will get, and they qualify for the first homeowners grant, they get free stamp duty up to $430,000, with a block of land up to $300,000. Now, that does have an extra $100,000 on both of those, which it phases out. So basically, if you're buying a property for $450,000, your stamp duty on $430,000 is free, but you pay stamp duty on the $20,000.
Right.
There is actually calculators on the Office of State Revenue's website that you can have a look at, or you can just check with your settlement agent or your broker or your real estate agent, who will usually come and ask their settlement agent, but they will give you an idea.
Yeah.
Just to give you an idea, on a $250,000 block, you're looking at $7,000 to $8,000. On a $500,000 house, you're looking at around about $18,000,
Okay.
just to give you
So
an
the key
idea.
to it is make sure that you ask so you've got the correct information when going into the purchase.
Definitely, because it obviously is quite a hefty sum, so you need to make sure you've got that covered, because stamp duty does have to be paid before or on settlement.
Yeah, exactly. Now, another question we often get asked is, can my settlement agent help me write up an offer and acceptance if I'm doing a private sale?
Absolutely. Yep, we are happy to write up a contract. In fact, if you're doing a private sale, you'd be silly not to get your settlement agent involved. I know with us, I can't speak for every settlement agent, I know with us, we actually do that for nothing. That's included in the price of doing your settlement. Even if you're buying or selling for a real estate agent, I would still recommend that you do actually give your settlement agent a call, particularly if you're a buyer. Bear in mind, a real estate agent, whilst they have a duty of care to you, they are getting paid by the seller.
Well, they're acting for the seller, aren't they?
Exactly, they are
you.
actually acting for the seller, and to actually, really, they've got to look after their seller. So sometimes, that may mean that you may possibly not get all the information you should. So I really recommend that you give your settlement agent a call, even if you're not doing a private contract, just to get a few of the ideas. We can point out a few tips and loopholes you might fall in to save you problems down the track. And again, this costs you nothing.
Yeah. Exactly right. Now, one of the questions we get asked often at the local loan company, and inevitably we will ring Avenue Conveyancing to check, is, can I get out of my contract? So I've signed the contract and for some reason I want out. Can I do it?
If I had $1 for every time that I would have been asked this, I wouldn't need to be a settlement agent. Okay. Just one thing that you need to know is that there is no cooling off period in WA. So once you enter into a contract, you are on and bound to do your best and use your best endeavours to actually get all of those conditions on your contract satisfied and bring the deal to fruition. So don't go signing up a contract unless you're sure. This is not a lay-by. This is a legal contract. Now, can you get out of it? That depends if you are doing it properly. That's not to say that you have to proceed with a contract if your finance is legitimately declined.
Yep.
I mean, yes, of course you will get your deposit back. If you've applied for finance, you can't get it. No one can force you into the contract. Okay. However, if you don't get a legitimate decline of finance, you could look at forfeiting your deposit, and that's just a start, because if the property has to go back on the market and it takes a while and it gets sold for a lesser price, you'd be getting a knock on the door for damages. So it's not something to be taken lightly. Do not sign a contract if you're not sure. Go home, sleep on it, get some advice. It's not easy to walk out of the contract. The seller might go, you know what, too hard you can walk, but you can't. You don't want to be putting your money on the table, with a chance.
Yeah, and another question we ask, and I'm probably throwing a bit of a curly one at you here, but if for some reason you go to do the inspection 3 days, I think it is, beforehand, and for some reason they said the swimming pool was in good working order and it was filthy dirty, the pump didn't work any longer, but when you signed the contract it was fine, and they refused to fix it. We've had this recently where someone's gone, that's it, I want out. If they don't fix it, I'm not going through with it. That happens quite a lot.
Yes. Okay.
How does that stand?
Okay, there's a few things there. First of all, when you buy a property and when you sell a property, the deal is the property has to be at the point of settlement or at the final inspection as it was when you inspected it. So if you bought a property that the lawn was up to here, it was filthy dirty, the blinds were falling off the walls, that's what you bought, plus anything on the contract. So if it was like that, but you've put subject to the lawns being mowed and the blinds being fixed, etc. So basically it is as you inspected it plus any conditions on the contract. Now if you've bought a house and it was all beautiful, you've gone back a month later just before settlement, your final inspection, it's not beautiful, you can ask for those things to be brought into order because your contract protects you. Now, strictly speaking, if the seller turns around and goes, no, I'm not doing that, okay, he is actually not doing the right thing and satisfying his contract, but you cannot hold up a $500,000 settlement for a $100 pool clean. So he can refuse that. You cannot refuse to settle. You have to go to settlement and take action against him after. In saying that, most of the time if we say the buyer's simply not doing this, which sometimes they do, the seller will generally pull their head in. Or, I shouldn't say this, but the real estate agent will probably get a handyman or someone in there to fix this up and get it through. I mean, nobody gets paid until
the deal goes through.
So basically if you are a buyer in that situation and you come back and the property is not as you inspected it, then really you should be bringing that up with the agent at the point of the inspection, and then giving your settlement agent a call and going, hey, not happy, this property is not as I inspected it. Somewhere along the line, generally common sense will prevail. Generally this does not go past settlement, it does get sorted.
And that's where it's really important to communicate really well with your settlement agent, who in turn, if they're doing their job really well, are communicating with all other parties to the transaction. So it tends to be not a great situation, but it doesn't end up a complete hot mess.
Oh, totally. And I think that's really important. If you're ringing around for quotes and stuff for a settlement agent, when you're doing that, I think you've really got to put that into account too. Is this someone that you can communicate? Are you comfortable communicating with this person? Because you might have to call on your settlement agent to help you out. So you want to be on the same wavelength as them. So I think that's really important, as well as, everybody's always after price. But, bear in mind, again, I go back to the fact that this is the biggest transaction that you will probably ever do. So it's really important that you're comfortable with the person that you are dealing with. And you're not feeling like, oh, I can't call them because, they'll snap my head off or anything. You need to feel comfortable about it and feel good with them.
Exactly. Now, another big question we get asked all the time is off-the-plan contracts.
Off-plan.
Completely different to a normal offer and acceptance. So,
there's lots of rules and stuff, and generally when you have off-the-plan contracts, they are this thick, and there are a lot of varying conditions there. But the basic things of off-the-plan contracts is they have their pros and cons. I mean, the good thing about off-the-plan contracts is generally they are a little cheaper than the land that has already been titled. It does give you time to save, and in a good market you do get that fixed price. Okay, on the downside, of course, if the market goes down, you're still at that fixed price. And the other thing which is off the plan is that it's like finding a needle in a haystack. Depending how long the subdivision is, how long it's been going and how long the line it is, then it does, it could be a little bit easier to pick, but it is subject to a lot of government clearances, and sometimes like delays do happen. It's not unusual for delays to happen, so it can be a little bit frustrating. You are in life's pending bus for an unknown period of time.
Yeah, so not always a great situation to be in.
No, but if you're not in a hurry and you're really not bothered, and just a lot of times you are told, hey, we think the title should be out in March. They do tend to get bumped, now June, now September, as long as you're aware of that.
Yeah.
The other thing to be really careful with, particularly if you're buying off the plan and you've gone into a building contract, is obviously once the builders get to a certain stage, they start upping their fees and their costs and whatnot because of the delays. You need to be aware of that and check that with your builder so that you don't end up in a situation that their prices have
And
rise.
check it with your broker as well. Really important
absolutely.
to see how you're going to stand.
Very good point, because most finance approvals only do have a lifeline, because obviously your situation changes, and if your situation changes, then you could have a few problems with your contract and they have their great side, and if you want brand new land, most of it you're going to have to go off the plan, because most of the developers won't start subdividing the land. They can't get finance to subdivide the land until they've got a certain amount of contracts on foot. So so if you do want land, it's often something you have to play with, but they're just things that you need to be a little bit careful with and ask them questions, and not just to the person that's signing you up.
No, ask to other people. So final question, and we get asked, and we do use it a lot. What is meant by the 3-day grace period? Because that's always in play.
Yeah. Okay, the 3-day grace period. Now, under the general joint form conditions, which is a set of conditions, and if you buy a house or a block of land, you'll get at the moment it's purple. They do change colours every time they upgrade them, and sometimes they're actually in the guts of the contract that's this thick. But basically, a standard contract allows for 3 working days grace. Now, that means that if your settlement is delayed, and the idea of this is in the spirit of things, that if something gets lost in the mail or something, there's a signature wrong at settlement or something like that, it gives us time to fix it. You've got 3 days in which to settle where penalty interest cannot be implied against you. But just be a little bit careful with that, because number one, some contracts write it out, and number two, once your 3 days goes by, you get charged penalty interest all the way back to the settlement date, including weekends.
Yep.
So it's just something to be, I'd never suggest to someone, some people go, oh, can I use my 3 days grace because I don't want to move? We would never suggest anyone take their 3 days grace on purpose. If you're going to do that, take it to the 2nd day's grace, because if anything does go wrong and someone runs late for settlement and bang, it gets called off,
you're in penalties.
You're in penalties.
Yeah, exactly. So, Jo, it's a really good idea, obviously, to use a great settlement agent, to communicate well with them, and to make sure that that settlement agent is communicating with all of the other parties efficiently. So, some great insights given by you today. The girls at Avenue Conveyancing are absolutely fabulous. We love that team. And thank you again, and we'll see you next time on Money, Money, Money. Thanks for watching Money, Money, Money. If you liked this video, hit the red subscribe button. If you'd like to know more information, you can follow us on Facebook or go to our website, linked in the information box below.